Hey guys, welcome in this new video. I hope that all of you are doing great. So if you follow me on Instagram, you probably saw that I said that I would eventually try a new type of videos for you guys, and that is the first one of it. So as you read in the title, in today's video, I will explain how to trade gold during 2020. And this video will be a lot more deep than what I normally do. So I will not just talk, for example, about the mindset, but I will really cover many things about this topic. So, you know, the overall situation, the strategy, the mindset, and things like that. So it's a lot more detailed. And yeah, I just hope that you guys will enjoy it. And of course, as always, my goal is to bring you guys as much value as possible. Also, make sure that you watch until the end of the video, because you will see that there is a ton of value, but during the whole video, you know, so don't just watch the first 2 minutes of it. Watch everything. I'm telling you, you will learn a lot and you will be a lot more prepared to actually attack this market. So with all of that being said, let's actually get right into it. Also guys, if you like that type of videos, make sure that you leave a like under this one, and I will see with the amount of likes if you guys want to see more of these videos in the future or not. It will basically give me a good idea relative to my other videos of how much you guys actually like this one. Okay, so let's actually get right into it. So first of all, understand the trading environment. Now when it comes to trading gold, this is very important. You need to understand the environment in which you will be trading in. Okay, so one of the main mistake, you know, that I see new traders doing is that, you know, they just open the chart, they don't really have a specific idea of what they're looking at, they don't really understand what is actually going on the market, what makes the price move, and they just go on the chart, you know, draw few lines here and there, and they end up, you know, not really being able to make a profit out of the market because they are not prepared enough and they don't fully understand what they are doing. So when it comes to trading gold, trading all markets of course, but even more, you know, by trading gold, you really need to have a good understanding of the environment. Now, one thing I also want to make clear in this video, I will not talk about, let's say, my own strategy to trade, because of course that is something that I cover in my trading course a lot more in details, but a lot of you guys don't trade like I do, you know, so I want to make this video available for everyone, and therefore I will give you guys information that no matter the strategy that you use, no matter how you look at the market, you will be able to use this information. So even if you don't trade exactly like I do, this video can still bring you a lot of value. Okay, so as you guys can see on the screen, gold has reached a very important level in September 2011 and also in December 2015. So if we take a look at the chart, this is the first and the second level that I just said. So I just identified them with a little line right over here, as you guys can see. But those levels are very important because this one is basically the end of this big uptrend that we got before. So as you guys can see, since 1998 and even before that, in reality, it's just that we don't see it on the chart, but even before that, we got a huge uptrend on gold that led the price nearly to the $2,000, right? And then it came back down all the way to nearly 1,000. And so since then, we have been trading between those two levels in this zone right over here. So this piece of information is very important because it tells us that we will be trading around those two levels for a very long time, and of course during 2020. Now, another information that is also very important to understand is that the price of gold is very unlikely to go back to, for example, the levels of 2000 or 2001, 2002, you know, like the very low levels that we had at the beginning of the uptrend. It's very unlikely for the price to go back down to these levels, simply because as time goes by, we have something that we call inflation, right? So basically, if you don't know what inflation is, I will keep it very simple. But as time goes by, the amount of money that it costs to buy products is increased, right? So if we go back to, let's say, 1950, in terms of money, right, in terms of the absolute number, it was less, you know, expensive than it is today. But it's not like today is not really more expensive because we make more money as well. You know, like people in 1950 were not making on average $50,000 per year, you know. So it kind of goes together, like the correlation is positive between those two things. But what you guys have to understand is that it's very unlikely for the price to go back down to such low levels simply because of inflation. And also another way that we could look at this is supply and demand, right? Now, what do I mean by that? First of all, when I say supply and demand, I'm not talking about support resistance, right? Just to make this clear. What I mean by supply and demand, well, we need to keep in mind that gold is a precious metal and it's a natural resource, right? Which means that there is not an infinite amount of gold on the planet, right? The amount of gold that there is limited, and therefore over time it is natural for it to increase in terms of its value because there is less and less of it, right? So that's another mentality that we can keep in mind. But of course, those ideas are really for the long term, you know, so it will not really directly help us to trade during 2020. But one thing that I really like to do when I trade is basically do a top-down approach, okay? What do we mean by that? Well, it's basically that we start on a very macro level and then we move back down to a micro level, right? Macro, micro, right? So we basically start with the overall picture, the overall situation, and then we move on to the lower time frame and see what we have there, right? So that's a very important way, I think, of doing your analysis, simply to get a overall view, right, of what you're looking at. Remember that I said at the beginning of the video that a lot of beginners are basically neglecting doing this, but it's very important for your overall understanding of the markets. Another point that is really important to understand is that gold is known as a safe haven, right? So as you can see on the screen, a safe haven is basically a financial product that you can expect for it to either stay neutral or maybe even increase in value when the market is becoming very volatile, and even, for example, when there is a recession or a market crash. So this is what we can consider gold to be. Now, something that is really important to understand is that the idea here that gold is a safe haven is a lot more powerful than the fact in itself. Now, what do I mean by that? So a lot of people say that, for example, when there is a financial crash or a recession, that people who have money in the stock market will usually take out this money and put it in those safe havens such as gold, right? So that's the common idea. Now, let me ask you a question. Do you really know people, right? Let's say that the average person who has money in a mutual fund or things like that, do you really know people who actually do this? You know, let's say that there is a, you know, crash that actually happens or a recession that actually happens. I challenge you guys, go ask, you know, either your friends or your parents or whatever, what they're going to do when the recession will start. Very few of them will say buy gold. You know, like it's not a reaction that is that common, you know, like a lot of people think that especially, you know, the traders, as I said, a lot of people think that it's something very common and that everyone knows that, and that, yeah, everyone does that and that's why it works. Not really, okay? And what I said is that basically the idea here is more powerful than what actually happens. So is there that many people who actually take out their money and put it in gold, right? The average person? Not really. But because of the fact that everyone believes that this is something that happens, it actually makes the idea powerful. So just because of the fact that a lot of people agree on this, well, this in itself can make the idea powerful. So that's a small distinction here, but that is something very interesting and important to understand, I think. And so the reason why I think that this is worth mentioning here is because if we look at the current situation of the economy, well, we can clearly see that there is a crash or a recession that will come eventually. Now, I'll not go too much into details on that. Maybe that I'll do another video in the future talking about this, but I think I already talked about this a little on my channel. So if you want to look this up, you will be able to find that. But this video is not really about that, you know, so I'll not go too much in details here. But basically, there are many reasons of why we can suggest that there is most likely going to be a crash or a recession to happen soon. Now, the only question that there is left is, you know, when it will happen. Will it be during 2020 or will it be later? So a few of these reasons are, well, first of all, we have the economic cycles, right? So on average, the general stock market goes up for between 5 to 8 years, right? So we have a uptrend during 5 to 8 years on average, and then we get a crash or a recession, and then it picks back up, right? So that's kind of the overall idea that we learn in basic economy classes, for example, in college or things like that. And so here, if we look at the economic cycle that we're currently in, well, we have been in the uptrend for over 10 years, which is very important, and that in itself is a really big piece of information. So it means that eventually, sooner or later, we will get a recession. As I said, the only question is, when will this happen? And if we extend our vision of the overall economy, well, we can see that there is a lot of uncertainty right now. And once again, there are many reasons of why that is. So for example, we have the US-China trade war, which is still ongoing at the time of the recording of this video. Then we have the whole situation between the US and Iran, right? So people are even talking about World War III and things like that. Then we have the Brexit in the UK, and we have a bunch of situations like that overall, if we combine all of these things, it really makes the economy, let's say, unstable and very uncertain about its future on the near term. So if we take this piece of information in consideration, well, it means that the move that we will see on gold quite largely depends on whether we actually get a recession or not, and the outcome of these uncertainties that I mentioned. And so basically, another point here also that I want to mention is that when December will come in 2020, we could most likely see a bullish move on gold. Now, why I am saying this? Well, it's because if we look at the past about 8 to 10 years on gold, we saw that most of the time during December, we get a nice up move on gold. So if we take a look at this chart, as you guys can see, I highlighted all the beginning of December in the last 10 years. And as we can see, well, most of the time we see a up move on gold. The only times really that we did not see a up move on gold was before 2012, right? So we had this one and this one here that basically was a small down move. But after that, we got basically every time during December a nice up move. Now, what does that mean and why is this important? Well, it's because that when December will come, as I said, in 2020, we have a higher probability to see a up move. Now, one thing that is important here to keep in mind is that this information alone cannot be enough to justify a trading decision, right? So just because most of the time in December it goes up doesn't mean that it will necessarily go up in 2020. Right? So you need to also have a strategy there to be able to trade this, and I will talk about that later. But basically, you cannot just say, oh, it's December, so let's buy gold. Because if you do this, well, you might end up in those situations right over here where the price does not really go up, it goes down, and there you will take unnecessary losses. So you cannot just take a trade because of that, but it is a great piece of information to keep in mind. So that is for much later, right? Because I'm releasing this video at the beginning of 2020 and I'm talking about the end of it. But since this video is really about, trading gold during the year, well, December is still during the year. So I thought of also mentioning that. Okay, so now that we have a better understanding of the overall situation that we have right now on the market and what could potentially affect the gold, well, the second big step will be to have a strategy to actually trade this, and implement this information in your trading. So as I said at the beginning of this video, I want all of you guys, even if you don't trade like me, to be able to understand everything and profit from this video in itself. So I will keep this part quite simple, but I still want to give you guys many points that you need to implement and to use when it comes to actually trading gold. Okay, so the first thing that I want to highlight here is simply that if you want to have above average result, well, you need to observe the masses and do the opposite. Right? So in trading, there is about 90% of people who don't make money. So 9% out of 10 in trading lose money, right? So that's quite a huge number. And so if you want to not be in this group, what you need to do is see what those people are doing and do the opposite. So if we look at most of these people, well, we will see that they don't really follow a plan, they trade more, let's say, randomly with their feelings, right? With what they think is good, and all of these bias basically that they have in their mind that makes their trading very not consistent. So if you want to be better than those people, well, you need to have a plan. You need to have a strategy that you will always respect at all costs, okay? And so if you want this strategy to be effective, what you have to do before, trading with real money, well, you need to have tested this strategy, right? You need to have back tested this strategy. So basically, when you will have formed your strategy, right, with whatever piece of information that you are learning it from, right? So maybe that it's a course, maybe that it's a book or YouTube videos or your own research or whatever. But when you have a strategy, you need to backtest this strategy in order to make sure that it's actually profitable, right? Because why would you trade with real money something that you don't even know if it's actually working or not, right? That's not really smart. So before actually starting with real money, you need to backtest your strategy to make sure that it's working or that it's not working, So if it's working, well, good for you. You might have found your own way of trading. And if it's not working, well, you need to change and you need to adapt, right? So that's a constant process that you will go through to become the best trader possible. And so, one other thing as well, that as you guys can see on the screen that I wrote, is that because of the market conditions and because of where the price of gold is between the two main levels that I highlighted at the beginning, well, it's harder to trade in those, moments than it was before. And because of that, you need to calculate every decision. Everything has to be very precise. Like, that is a huge key that you can apply in your strategy no matter how you trade, but you need to calculate everything. Stop guessing, stop, putting some trades here and there, just going with the flow and things like that. No. Like, trading is a business at the end of the day. So you need to calculate everything and make sure that everything is very clear for you to basically get the best results possible. And so another point, and here this is really important, so listen closely, okay? And this also works for, as I said, any type of strategy that you use. But basically, the best opportunities, the best trade setups that happen, especially on a market like gold, is when everything lines up together, right? When everything matches together, when everything points in the same direction, this is usually the moment where it is the highest probability for you to make a profit out of a move. So what do I mean by when everything lines up? Well, it's about the general situation, right? So fundamental analysis, for example. Then we could talk about technical analysis, right? Then we could talk about the news, for example, right? So when everything that you use to make an analysis, when all the points line up together, this is usually the best type of trades. And personally, this is the only scenario that I like to trade, and not only on gold, but on anything. So when I trade, I like for everything to tell me the same thing, because those are really the best trades possible. And this is how, as I said, at the end, of the month or of the year or whatever, that you can really maximize the money that you make on the market. And that is, of course, the goal. Now that we talk about the points that I think are very important for you to implement in your strategy, let's talk a little bit about the psychology. Now, I have plenty of videos about mindset and psychology on my channel, so if you want, you can watch these videos and there's a ton of value there as well. So here, I just want to highlight a few points that I think are important to mention here and relevant to the topic that we're talking about, okay? So the most rational trader is the one who wins, right? So you must control your emotions. Once again, I see too many people, especially on that type of market like gold, who end up trading a little bit with their feeling, not really respecting a plan or following a process. And they justify this type of decision making by saying, for example, oh yeah, but I invest for the long term, I don't really worry where I buy, I'm in it for the long term, right? As you said, Anthony, right? It's a safe haven, so it must gain value over the long term. Well, yes and no, right? It's not really, the best mindset, because let's say that, okay, right, it's a safe haven, it might gain value over the long term and all these things, but let's say that you get in the trade in 2020, let's say that you buy, and let's say that it starts to go down after that, right? Well, what happens? You are stuck in a trade for years, that is not profitable, where you are losing money. So number one, are you going to be able to handle this situation and not panic, right? Second of all, when you are in this trade, not only you are losing money, but you are also taking capital away from potential other investments. So you're not making money with this investment, but you also have less money to invest in other places, right? So the loss is basically double, right? And so that's what that basically comes back to what I was talking about at the beginning. Like, you cannot just be like everyone else and just put money in this randomly and expect for your money to grow and things like that. If you want to be successful in this, you need to have a plan and follow a structure. And this first starts with having the right mindset. So that is really, really important. And so I also talked a little bit about that before, but basically because of the complexity of the situation, you might take a little more losses than usual, right? So let's say that you did your backtesting, in 2005, 2006, when the markets were really uptrending, as we saw at the beginning of the video. Well, you will have it easier there than in real life when you will actually trade on the markets that we're having right now. So it's really, really important to understand that you might take a little more losses than usual. That is perfectly normal. If you are good, you will still be able to make profits out of the market, but maybe that your results will be a little less, profitable than they could have been in another situation. And so that's really important to also have this in your mind right now and implement this in your psychology, because if you are not ready to take a little more losses, as I said, it might surprise you, right? It might disturb you, or even worse than that, maybe that you will get in your emotions and just mess up your whole trading. So it's really important to understand at the beginning that you will most likely have a little less good results than in another situation. So therefore, when the losses actually come in your trading, you are ready mentally to handle them, right? So that's another point that is very important. And so the last thing here that I think that is worth mentioning when it comes to gold is to really pick your own style, right? As I said, based on what you learned, and stick to this own style, like stop looking at what everyone else is doing, because there's not only one way to trade the markets, right? There are many, many different ways of how we can trade these markets and be profitable. And so if you always look at what other people are doing, it's most likely just going to, mess up with your mind, and it's not going to help you in any ways. So that's really, really important. Stick to what you are doing if it has been proven that it's working, right? That's really, really important. So, always follow the plan and stay focused. Now, it doesn't mean that you need to block all the outside information, because you can always improve, you can always get better. It just means that you need to basically balance this information and know what to take and know what to leave on the table. That's kind of the idea. So that's pretty much it for how to trade gold during 2020. Now, as I said, I wanted to keep this video relatively general for all of you guys to be able to use this information. But as you saw, I went in a lot more details and a lot more, explanation than what I normally do in most of my videos. And I also had, some, notes on the screen and things like that, so it will help you guys actually follow better. So I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. Now, before that I end this video, there is another thing that I would like to show you guys, and that is why at the beginning I said that you should stick until the end of the video to also not miss this information. But basically, on Reversal Master, which is my trading course, most of you guys probably know this already. If we scroll down a little bit on the website, well, we will see that there is now basically 90 hours of educational videos in the course. Now, I don't know if you guys realize how much that is, but it's a lot, right? So if we look at, for example, courses in college or even university, most of them don't have that much content. And if we look at other trading courses out there, most of them are also not even close to having that much content. So the reason why I wanted to share this with you guys is simply that I'm very proud, of my course. I think that it's a very valuable course, and that we have students who get amazing results, people who trade on 5-6 figures account, people who are full-time into trading just like me, people who are really seeing, you know, a lot of progress and a lot of changes in their trading as well. So I think that the course is extremely valuable. I get like amazing feedback, you know, on a daily basis, and that is why I thought of mentioning this here. Simply that if you guys are not in Reversal Master, well, I highly suggest for you to actually just at least, you know, take a look at the website, see what you could get from actually joining us. This is not the sales pitch or whatever bullshit, right? As you guys know, I don't really promote my course or anything, but here, since we just reached this milestone of 90 hours of educational content in the course, I thought that it was nice to mention. And as you guys know as well, I add new videos on a weekly basis, you know, so 90 hours for now, but it will keep going up and up and up, and eventually we will even reach 100 hours of educational content. So that's pretty cool, and that is the little note I wanted to do at the end of this video. So if you guys enjoyed this new type of video, make sure that you leave a like under this one. As I said, if I see that there are many likes on this video, I will definitely do more of these. So I will just compare with my other videos and see how you guys actually like this one. And yeah, so thank you so much guys for watching once again. I really appreciate it, and I hope that you got value out of this video. So on that note, take care, trade with care, manage money well, and I will see you in my next video. Bye bye.